Welcome to Israel Unveiled. My name is Sandy Wesowitz, and I'm so glad you could join with me today. This podcast is a little different from others that I've done. I wanted to share some of the out-of-the-way places in Jerusalem, usually not included in most trip itineraries. Everyone who comes to Israel always includes, of course, the old city of Jerusalem. But not everyone is aware that beneath the old city is an amazing 5-acre site, a limestone quarry known as Solomon's Quarries, or sometimes referred to as Zedekiah's Cave. It was named for the 6th century BC Judean king. Many believe that this quarry was the primary source of the limestone that was used to build the Second Temple, as well as the massive stones for the retaining wall, the Western Wall, used to support the enlarged grounds upon which the temple area was built. The unprecedented building project began during King Herod's reign in 20 BC, and it was completed 46 years later. It was considered one of the wonders of the world at that time. Most of the stones used are estimated to weigh between 2 and 8 tons, with the largest about 570 tons. It measures 44.5 feet long and 11 feet high. How did they cut and carry those stones and fit them in place? And now I was actually looking at the place where those stones were quarried. The entrance is located to the left of the Damascus Gate that's pictured here. I found an old photo taken of the entrance to the quarry. As you enter through the narrow doorway shown here in the photo by Farrell Jenkins, you immediately notice that it begins to slope down. You can hardly believe you're under the old city. The Arab quarter is right above it, where there's shops and people and so much activity. Yet below ground in that quarry, it was so quiet, it was almost surreal. It's an incredible sight. The descending path begins to widen, and then suddenly you see that it opens up to a 150-foot long chamber, like a huge auditorium. It could seat hundreds of people comfortably. Our guide told us about a legend that during the Babylonian siege of Jerusalem in 587 BC, King Zedekiah tried to flee Jerusalem. But Babylonian King Nebuchadnezzar caught him, massacred his whole family, gouged out his eyes, and hauled him in chains to Babylon. What a gruesome thought. During the Muslim Ottoman Empire, Sultan Suleiman the Magnificent, who ruled for 46 years, concealed the entrance for security reasons. And it wasn't discovered until 1854 when James Barclay, an American explorer of Palestine, found it. It was said that he snuck in the middle of the night to explore it. On that particular glow trip to Israel, there were 100 of us, and thankfully we didn't have to sneak in. We had an incredible time singing and praying in that huge chamber, and it was an unforgettable experience. So when you come to Israel, be sure to tour Solomon's Quarry. You will not be disappointed. Another of the unique places in Jerusalem is the International YMCA. It was dedicated in 1933. My friend Nancy and I like to stay there for a few nights before we're meeting with the larger group that we would help lead on the Aglow tour. We would arrive a couple days early to acclimate to the time change, and then we'd like to see something new every time we came. And we loved staying at the YMCA. Besides clean and comfortable rooms, a beautiful theater for live productions, it has beautiful decor and a lovely indoor-outdoor dining on a garden that overlooks the stately, historic King David Hotel. The YMCA had a history all of its own. As I mentioned, it opened in 1933. And at its dedication, this is what was declared. Here is a place whose atmosphere is peace, where political and religious jealousies can be forgotten, and international unity be fostered and developed. It became the site of a very important part of Israel's modern history. In 1947, the United Nations Special Committee on Palestine, known as UNSCOP, it was comprised of representatives from 11 nations. They met there to determine the future of Palestine. And you can walk through that room where it all happened. It was there in that room they decided upon the recommendation to the United Nations that would establish the Jewish state. It was a promise to the Jewish people that was actually first made in 1917 by all the nations and voted on that international body at that time. And it was finally becoming a reality. So consider lunch at the YMCA and visit the room where the historic recommendation to the UN in 1947 was deliberated, and that would ultimately lead to the establishing of the State of Israel. And when you do, also take a look outside of the building. It's really interesting. The architecture of the YMCA itself is full of symbolism. There's 12 cypress trees that represent the 12 disciples and the 12 tribes. There's 40 pillars in the courtyard, and that represents 40 years of Jewish wilderness and Jesus' 40 days in the wilderness as well. Every column is topped with carvings that represent the plants and animals of the Bible. And because Nancy and I were staying there, we could take the elevator and then climb the remaining staircase to the very top of the building. Wow. It gave a 360-degree spectacular view of Jerusalem and the mountains that surrounded it. So if you have some free time, plan on having a lunch or even just a cup of Israeli coffee in a place that is dedicated to bridge building among Christians, Jews, and Muslims. And one little last story about the YMCA. On one of our trips, we flew into Israel, and we landed, of course, at Ben Gurion Airport in Tel Aviv. And we had a lovely Arab cab driver. And as we were nearing the city, he asked where we were staying. And so we said, well, the YMCA. Even though he was familiar with Jerusalem, it was obvious he had no idea where the YMCA was, and we were kind of surprised by that. So we remembered that it was across the street from the King David Hotel. Everybody knows the King David Hotel. So as soon as we said that, he laughed and he said, YMCA. We had to remember that we were in a country with a diverse population, and YMCA was YMCA. The last place that I want to highlight in this podcast is the most beautiful synagogue in the old city of Jerusalem, and it's located in Hurva Square. Hurva Square is right in the center of the Jewish quarter, and it's appropriately known as the Hurva, which means the ruin. It was first built in the 1500s, but it was destroyed during the Ottoman-Turk reign. Then it was reconstructed in 1864, only to have major damage in the 1948 battle for Jerusalem when the Jordanians ultimately bombed the synagogue. For the second time then, the Hurva was destroyed. But before it was from that Hurva Synagogue that rabbis had called out to the world to save the Jews during the World War II and the planned extermination of the Jewish people in the Nazi death camps. In 1967, all of the old city of Jerusalem was recaptured in the Six-Day War. All the Israelis found of the Great Hurva was a single arch. And this was the arch that I saw for the first time on the first of my many trips to Israel. But around 2006, I noticed that the large stones in Hurva Square near that arch had numbers on them. And I came to learn that they were numbered so that they could be placed according to the original blueprints of the Great Hurva. And in 2010, after 4 years of reconstruction, the Great Hurva Synagogue was restored to its former glory, and regular services resumed after 62 years. Today, the Hurva is open to tourists, and you can actually go all the way up to the dome, and from that balcony have a 360-degree spectacular view of Jerusalem. The view into the synagogue from that balcony shows you its beauty, and it has one of the tallest Torah arcs in the world. So when you come to Israel, be sure to include in your busy schedule a tour of the Hurva. You'll actually be touring the spiritual heart of the Jewish quarter. I hope you've enjoyed this different kind of a podcast. I hope you'll join with me again. And if you would like to view some other podcasts, I just ask that you would click like and share, and then also click subscribe. Be blessed and shalom.